Hey guys, let's talk about something super important in the asset protection world here. But don't worry, we're going to keep this simple and even a little bit fun here with a nice analogy. So picture this: choosing the right asset protection strategy is going to be a lot like picking your favorite, flavor of ice cream. Think about like Baskin Robbins, okay? So some flavors are sweet and simple, others are bold and exotic, and then there's the perfect mix of both, kind of our go-to. Today I'm gonna break this down, all right? We're gonna be breaking down domestic trusts in the US, offshore Cook Islands trust, like foreign trust, and then the bridge trust here. By the end of this video, I want you to be able to decide like which one will best fit your situation and like how to protect all your hard-earned wealth, like which one is going to fit you. So let's just dive into it. Let's start with the famous offshore Cook Island trust, okay? These are like a tropical sorbet, right? It's exotic, it's bold, and it's packed with a lot of flavor. Offshore trusts, especially in places like the Cook Islands, are considered just the gold standard for asset protection. They're the best, still are the best. No one really argues that point. But why is that? It's because one, the cooks the courts and the cooks don't recognize foreign judgments. So if a U.S. court says you owe someone money, guess what? The Cook Islands court says, sorry, it's not our problem. We're not recognizing it. They have this famous thing called statutory non-recognition. Number two, the legal standards there are incredibly high. Creditors need to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the murder standard. That's just nearly impossible in civil cases to prove. Number three, they've got decades of proven case law to back them up. We have the cases like the United States versus Grant and SEC versus Solo and the famous Anderson case. And there's over 40 years of case law on these. So these famous cases just show how effective these trusts can actually be. Offshore trusts are undoubtedly very powerful, but like anything exotic, they come with a price, right? They're expensive to set up and to maintain, and then you've got to comply with mandatory IRS regulations and FACTA disclosures. So it's generally not a flavor that everyone's jumping into to start out with. It can be overkill for most people. So that brings us to the other option, right? Like let's jump into the domestic side of things and talk about the domestic asset protection trust. These are like your classic, vanilla ice cream, all right? It's simple, it's affordable, and it's easy to set up. But they became popular a little bit later. They came around in 1998, and there's about 19 states now that allow them, so not every state recognizes them. And so here's the deal with them. They're cheaper than offshore trusts, so check mark. They don't have the same intense IRS reporting requirements and disclosures, so check mark. But here's the catch. Domestic trusts in the U.S. just don't hold up when they're challenged in court. They're sadly just not that effective, and we have a lot of case law on this. Like we got Kilker versus Stillman, In re Hubbard, Dahl versus Dahl, and a lot of other ones. Judges are just ignoring the protections these trusts are supposed to provide. We also have public policy considerations in the U.S. The courts in the U.S. make it easy for creditors to break through domestic trust, especially if they involve out-of-state assets or claims. So a lot of people who are California residents trying to create out-of-state Nevada asset protection trust, there's that Kilker versus Stillman case. It's not going to work. They don't recognize them. So let's face it, yeah, vanilla's nice, but it's not for everyone, and it might not stand up to the heat when it's necessary, when it's challenged in court. And then there's a third option. There's the bridge trust. This is like that perfect swirl cone, a blend of your favorite flavors of ice cream all put together in a nice waffle cone. All right, the bridge trust combines the strengths of both offshore and domestic trust, giving you that best of both worlds option. Here's why the bridge trust is such a game changer. One, it's a hybrid. So it is a fully registered offshore Cook Island trust from the day it's created. But for tax purposes and tax simplicity, it's domesticated by the IRS. And when it's needed, we can then cross that bridge to become fully offshore if a threat like a lawsuit ever arises. You get this, number two, you get this robust protection of that offshore Cook Island trust without the high upfront costs to start it. Three, it's just easier to maintain and keep IRS compliance and regulations on. And number four, and here's the best part, you maintain a level of control of your assets while ensuring the assets are actually safeguarded and protected. So which one is right for you? Offshore trusts are incredible incredibly powerful if you're dealing with, high risk, you're high profile professional, and you don't mind the cost. I would go that route then. Domestic trusts are budget friendly, but not very effective or reliable, when push comes to shove and they're actually going to be challenged. But it's better than nothing, and if cost is your deciding factor, I would then go just purely domestic. And then there's the bridge trust. Well, it's the perfect blend for those who want strong protection without breaking the bank. It's that best of both worlds option. That's where about 99% of all of our clients go to. But here's the thing, there's no one size fits all answer. The best choice depends on your financial situation, your goals, and the risk you're facing, and even your own personal risk tolerance. Everybody's going to perceive risk a little bit different. That's why it's important to work with someone who knows the ins and outs of asset protection, and specifically asset protection trust and the different types of trusts that are available. So if you're ready to take the next step, reach out to me or drop a comment below. I'd love to help you secure your financial future. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, give this a thumbs up, share it with someone who needs it, and don't forget to subscribe for more tips on protecting your wealth. Until next time, let's just keep on investing and keeping our assets safe.